The ivory keys felt cold beneath my fingertips as I ran my hand across them one last time. My daughter Sarah's piano, the one my late husband had saved for years to buy her, was being wheeled out of our living room. I stood frozen, watching two burly movers lift the beautiful mahogany upright that had been the centerpiece of our home for the past 15 years. "Mom, what's happening?" Sarah's voice cracked behind me. She had just walked in from school, her backpack dropping to the floor with a thud. The sound echoed through our now emptier living room. I couldn't find the words. How do you tell your 18-year-old daughter that her grandmother, my own mother, had decided that her piano should go to my sister Diane's 10-year-old son because Sarah doesn't play anymore anyway? "Ask your grandmother," I whispered, my voice barely audible over the scraping sound of the piano legs against our hardwood floor. Sarah ran to the movers. "Stop. That's mine. Where are you taking it?" Her voice rose with each word, panic setting in as reality dawned on her. My mother stepped in from the kitchen, her face set in that familiar expression of absolute certainty. "Sarah, sweetie, you haven't touched that piano in months. Jason has real talent and needs a proper instrument. It's just collecting dust here." I watched as my daughter's face crumpled, her eyes filling with tears. "I haven't played because I've been preparing for college applications. That doesn't mean I don't want it anymore." My mother waved her hand dismissively. "The decision's been made. The movers are already here." As they pushed the piano through our front door, I caught a glimpse of my sister in her SUV parked in our driveway, smiling triumphantly. Our family dynamic had always been skewed. My older sister Diane was the golden child, and I was the afterthought. Growing up in suburban Chicago, our modest three-bedroom home had always felt like Diane's kingdom, with me merely occupying space. Now at 42, I was a widow raising Sarah alone after losing my husband Mark to cancer 3 years ago. My mother had moved in with us, temporarily, to help, but her presence had slowly morphed from support to dominance. Our house technically belonged to my mother now. Mark and I had been forced to sell it to her during his illness to cover medical bills, with the understanding we could continue living there. It was a decision born of desperation that I regretted every day. The piano had been the one thing that truly belonged to Sarah. Mark had worked extra shifts for 2 years to afford it when Sarah showed musical promise at age 7. It represented not just her talent, but her father's love and sacrifice. The day after the piano was taken, I found Sarah in the empty corner of the living room, sitting on the floor where it had stood. "Why didn't you fight harder, Mom?" she asked without looking up. The question pierced my heart. "Your grandmother owns the house, Sarah. She threatened to." "To what? Kick us out? Would that be worse than letting her walk all over us?" Sarah's voice was cold, detached. It scared me more than if she'd been screaming. My mother entered the room, newspaper in hand. "Sarah, stop being dramatic. Jason had his first lesson yesterday and his teacher says he's a natural." I watched my daughter's hands curl into fists, her knuckles white with restraint. "You know I was saving to buy my own place," I said to my mother. "We could have taken the piano then." "By the time you save enough, it would have sat unused for years," my mother replied with a dismissive snort. "Besides, Jason needs it now. His recital is in 2 months." Sarah stood up silently and walked to her room. The quiet click of her door closing felt like a gunshot. The following weeks were unbearable. Sarah withdrew completely, barely speaking to either of us. Her college acceptance letters arrived, including one from Juilliard's music program, but she showed no excitement. "What's the point?" she muttered when I tried to celebrate with her. "I won't have anywhere to practice." My mother scoffed. "The school has pianos. And it's not like you'll make a career of it anyway." I saw something break in Sarah's eyes that day. She stopped eating dinner with us, studying late at the library instead of coming home. When she was home, the silence in the house was deafening. The empty space where the piano had stood seemed to grow larger each day. One Sunday, my sister brought Jason over for a family dinner. He spent the entire meal talking about his piano lessons and upcoming recital. My mother beamed with pride, asking him to describe every detail of his progress. Sarah was invited to play at the state competition when she was your age, I said quietly. The table fell silent. Ancient history, my sister said with a wave of her hand. Jason's teacher says he could be ready for competitions next year. Sarah abruptly stood up. May I be excused? Without waiting for an answer, she left the table. Later that night, I heard muffled sobs coming from her room. I knocked gently, but she didn't answer. When I opened the door, I found her curled on her bed, clutching a photo of her father sitting beside her at the piano. He would be so disappointed in me, I whispered, sitting on the edge of her bed. No, Mom, Sarah said, her voice stronger than I expected. He would be disappointed in them, and in how we've let them treat us. Her words hit me like a physical blow. She was right. Mark would never have allowed this to happen. The breaking point came a week later. My mother announced she'd invited Diane's entire family for Easter dinner at our house. And Jason will play for us after dinner on Sarah's piano, she declared. It's not Sarah's piano anymore, is it, Mom? I said, surprising myself with the edge in my voice. My mother blinked. What's gotten into you? You had no right to give away her piano. It wasn't yours to give. I most certainly did have the right. This is my house and everything in it. No, I cut her off. The piano was bought by Mark. It was never part of the house sale. It belongs to Sarah. My mother's face hardened. Well, it's too late now. It's in Diane's house and Jason loves it. Something inside me snapped. Years of submission and acquiescence crumbled away. Then I'll take it back. I called a lawyer that afternoon. The consultation confirmed what I already knew. The piano had never legally been my mother's to give away. I had documentation, the original receipt in Mark's name, insurance records, even maintenance receipts. When I told Sarah about the consultation, I saw a spark return to her eyes for the first time in weeks. Are we really going to fight back? She asked cautiously, as if afraid to hope. Yes, I said firmly. Your father would expect nothing less. I sent a formal letter to my sister, copied to my mother, demanding the return of the piano within 7 days. The response was swift and ugly, a screaming phone call from Diane, followed by my mother threatening eviction. So be it, I told her, my voice steady despite my racing heart. But the piano comes back to Sarah first. As the conflict escalated, memories of my childhood resurfaced, wounds I'd tried to forget. I remembered being 11, winning a school art contest only to have my mother praise Diane's participation ribbon more enthusiastically. I remembered being 16 and having to give Diane my prom dress because she would look prettier in it anyway. The pattern was so clear now. My entire life had been shaped by yielding to Diane's desires, to my mother's favoritism. Mark had been the first person to ever put me first. I met him in college, my escape from home, and he saw something in me no one else had bothered to look for. You shine, he used to tell me, when you're not standing in someone else's shadow. We built our life deliberately away from my family's influence. When Sarah was born, we agreed to raise her differently to make her feel valued, heard, and respected. But after Mark's diagnosis, everything changed. The medical bills mounted quickly. His insurance covered only a portion of the treatments. Our savings disappeared within months. My mother's offer to buy our house seemed like salvation at the time. You'll still live here, she promised. Nothing will change. I remembered Mark's hesitation. Even weakened by chemotherapy, he saw what I couldn't. Are you sure, Beth? He had asked. Your mother has never given anything without strings attached. But we were desperate, and I convinced him it would be fine. She's changed, I insisted. She wants to help. 3 weeks after we signed the house over, Mark was gone. And within months, my mother had moved in, bringing all the old dynamics with her. I had failed him. I had failed Sarah. But I wouldn't fail them anymore. The turning point came from an unexpected source. My father-in-law, Jack, Mark's father, called me out of the blue. We hadn't spoken much since the funeral, the grief too raw for both of us. Sarah called me, he said. Told me about the piano. I felt ashamed that I hadn't reached out to him myself. I'm handling it, Jack. Like hell you are, he said, his voice gruff with emotion. That piano was Mark's gift to his daughter. No one has the right to take it. His directness was refreshing after weeks of my mother's manipulation. I've consulted a lawyer, I told him. But Mom owns the house and she's threatening. To put you out? Let her try, Jack interrupted. Sarah graduates in 2 months. You've both been prisoners long enough. He was right. We had been surviving, not living. Come stay with me after graduation, he offered. The lake house has plenty of room. Get back on your feet without your mother breathing down your neck. I felt tears well up. I can't ask you to do that. You didn't ask. I offered. And I've got some savings that Mark never touched meant for Sarah's education. Seems like now's the time to use it. For the first time in years, I felt like I could breathe. There was a way out. One more thing, Jack added before hanging up. Mark would be proud of you for finally standing up for yourself and Sarah. It's about damn time. That night, I told Sarah about her grandfather's offer. We stayed up late making plans, and I saw hope blooming in her eyes again. The confrontation came sooner than expected. 2 days later, I received an email from my sister with a video attachment. It showed Jason playing Sarah's piano with a caption, "See how much better use we're making of it?" I showed it to Sarah, bracing for her pain. But she stared at the screen with an odd expression. "Mom," she said slowly, "look at the piano bench." I looked closer. There, barely visible at the edge of the frame, was a distinctive scratch on the bench, a mark shaped like a crescent moon. "That's not my piano," Sarah whispered. "My bench had a heart carved in it. Dad did it for my 10th birthday." We watched the video again, examining every detail. The piano in my sister's living room was indeed the same model as Sarah's, but it wasn't hers. The color was slightly different, the brass pedals newer. "They switched pianos," I said in disbelief. "They gave us an elaborate show of taking yours, but they brought in a different one." Sarah's face paled. "Where's mine, then?" The next day, I drove to my mother's storage facility, the one she thought I didn't know about. Using the spare key she had carelessly left in our kitchen drawer once, I opened the unit. There, under a tarp, was Sarah's piano. The real one, with the heart carved into the bench. And beside it, stacks of other items from our house that had mysteriously needed to go to Diane's over the years, Mark's vinyl collection, my grandmother's china, even Sarah's first guitar. I took photos of everything, my hands shaking with rage and vindication. When I showed Sarah, something hardened in her expression. "They've been stealing from us for years," she said, "and gaslighting us into thinking we were wrong to question it." That evening, I sent the photos to my lawyer, to Jack, and, after a moment's hesitation, to my mother and sister. The response was nuclear. The next morning, my mother stood in our kitchen, her face ashen. "You had no right to break into my storage unit. And you had no right to steal from us," I replied calmly. "The piano returns to Sarah today, or we press charges for theft." For the first time in my life, I saw uncertainty in my mother's eyes. "It's not theft if it's in my house." My lawyer disagrees, and so would the police. I placed a formal letter on the table. "This outlines everything you've taken from us under false pretenses. The piano is just the beginning." My mother stared at the paper but didn't touch it. "You wouldn't dare turn against your own family." "You turned against us first," Sarah said, entering the kitchen. Her voice was steady, her posture straight. "When you took what didn't belong to you." My mother looked from me to Sarah, searching for the compliance she'd always counted on. Finding none, she tried a new tactic. "I was only trying to help Jason," she said, her voice softening. "He needs opportunities like Sarah had." "Then buy him his own piano," I said. "Stop taking from Sarah to give to him." That afternoon, two movers, different ones, returned Sarah's piano. My sister wasn't there, but my mother supervised with tight lips and cold eyes. As they positioned it in its rightful place, Sarah ran her fingers over the carved heart on the bench, tears streaming down her face. "This isn't over," my mother warned as she left. "This house is still mine." "Not for much longer," I replied. "We'll be gone after graduation." For the first time in 3 years, Sarah played that evening. The music filled our house again, washing away some of the bitterness of the past months. The weeks leading up to graduation were tense. My mother made herself scarce, staying with Diane most nights. When she did come home, she acted as if Sarah and I were tenants rather than family. Word of our conflict spread through the extended family. Some cousins called to express support, having experienced similar treatment from my mother and sister over the years. Others sided with them, calling me ungrateful and selfish. I didn't care anymore. The spell was broken. I could see clearly now how my mother had manipulated us all for years, playing favorites, manufacturing crises to maintain control. Sarah threw herself into practicing for her Juilliard audition. Having her piano back had reignited her passion, and she played with a new intensity, as if making up for lost time. 2 days before graduation, my sister called. Her voice was strange, tight. "Jason's recital is tomorrow," she said without preamble. "Mom wants you and Sarah to come." "Why would we do that?" I asked. "Because I'm asking," she said, an unfamiliar note in her voice. Vulnerability, perhaps. "Please." Against my better judgment, we went. The community center was packed with parents and relatives of the young performers. We sat in the back, ready to leave quickly if necessary. When Jason took the stage, he looked small and nervous. The piano before him was not Sarah's, nor was it the one from the video. It was the center's own instrument, worn from years of student recitals. He played adequately, not the prodigy my mother had proclaimed him to be, but a normal 10-year-old with some talent and limited practice. Afterward, my sister approached us hesitantly. "Thank you for coming," she said, not quite meeting our eyes. "He plays well," Sarah said sincerely. "With practice, he could be really good." My sister looked surprised at the genuine compliment. "Mom exaggerates," she admitted quietly. "She always has." In that moment, I glimpsed something I'd never seen before: my sister's own struggles with our mother's manipulations. She had been cast as the golden child, but that role came with its own burdens. Her son now carried the weight of impossible expectations. "We're moving out next week," I told her. "To Jack's Lake house." She nodded slowly. I heard, then, almost inaudibly, "Maybe that's for the best." As we walked away, Sarah took my hand. "They're trapped too, aren't they? Just in a different way." I squeezed her hand, proud of her insight. "Yes, but that's their challenge to face, not ours." Sarah's graduation day dawned bright and clear. Jack came early to help us pack the last of our essential belongings. The piano would be moved to the lake house the following day. My mother attended the ceremony but sat apart from us. I could feel her eyes on me throughout, calculating her next move. Sarah gave a short speech as class valedictorian. Without ever mentioning our family drama, she spoke eloquently about finding your voice and standing your ground. "Sometimes," she said, looking directly at me in the audience, "the most important lesson isn't found in textbooks. It's learning when to fight for what matters and having the courage to start over when necessary." At the reception afterward, my mother approached us. For a moment, I thought she might apologize, might try to mend what had been broken. Instead, she handed me an envelope. "Your formal eviction notice," she said coldly. "You have 30 days, though I understand you're leaving sooner." Jack stepped forward. "That won't be necessary, Margaret. They'll be out tomorrow, piano and all." My mother's eyes narrowed. "You always did coddle them, Jack. Even Mark was too soft." "No," I interjected. "Mark was strong in all the ways that matter." He knew the difference between kindness and weakness, something you never learned. She left without another word, her back rigid with anger. That night, Sarah played the piano one last time in the house where she had grown up. The music was different now, stronger, more confident, with an edge of defiance. As the final notes faded, she looked up at me. "We should have done this years ago." Yes, I agreed. But we're doing it now. That's what matters. The next morning, as the movers loaded Sarah's piano into their truck, I took one last look at the house. It had never really been ours. I realized, not in the ways that counted. Our real home was wherever we could be true to ourselves, wherever Sarah could play her music without apology, wherever we could honor Mark's memory by living with the courage he had taught us. The lake house was waiting. Juilliard was waiting. A future free from manipulation was waiting. "Ready?" Sarah asked, standing by the car. "More than ready," I answered, and we drove away without looking back. Sometimes the most valuable instrument isn't the piano itself, but the strength you find when someone tries to take it away. My daughter's music flows freely now across the lake waters, each note an affirmation that what was meant to break us has only made us stronger. Some inheritances aren't things at all, but the courage to reclaim what's rightfully yours, your voice, your space, your right to be heard. Playing or silent, that melody can never be stolen again.